You guys sit down. It's fine. We'll get you in a second. Jeff, we've come to the point of the service where it's a more formal ordination service, and I'm going to be talking to you. In a moment, we'll have you kneel down. We'll have each of these guys pray over you. I want to charge you briefly in the presence of your church. And the first is this, and I'm not going to ask you to go into great detail or anything, but could you briefly tell us your testimony? Jeff, is a church that, as we talk about what we were saying just a few minutes ago, it's a church that's been growing this week and last week apparently aside. But, as a church, it's been growing. One of the things is that we have a need for people to step up as an example of what it means to be a man full of the Spirit and the wisdom of God. As a Christian who's dedicated to not only God, but his church and its people and his word. Jeff, are you? How long have you been a part of our church?
You ask a hard question. Couple of years.
That's what I thought. Longer than me. I was just up there, so don't feel bad about it. It's fine. So a couple of years, and I know you're feeling a little self-conscious right now. That's obvious. Yeah, I'm just going to have you stand up there and feel that way for a few more minutes because it's sort of funny. As you're doing that, is in that time, in that short amount of time, you've already been shown to be faithful in your walk with God, with your wife, family, to a point that in that brief time, our church already considers you the kind of person that could come to this spot, be chosen to stand before all of us today, and take on this position of servant leadership. And I know you feel very unworthy, that's obvious. No one is ever worthy for the calling that God puts on their life. Trust me. That being said, God has called you. This church has called you, and you have accepted. In a moment when you kneel down and we lay hands on you, I want you to understand, and I'm going to keep asking you questions. It ain't your favorite thing, that's obvious. That being said, what happens, and you need to understand this, our church needs to understand this, is when you kneel down and hands are laid on you, what it is the same thing that happened in that passage. It is a passing on of the power of God that was put into our lives onto you. What you want to be able to see is that this goes back all the way to Jesus Christ, who laid hands on the apostles, who laid hands on the pastors and the deacons and so forth, as we continue thousands of years into the future. And that same power that Jesus gave to the apostles and the apostles gave to those after them, that we are giving from ourselves to you. There are men in this room on whom will place their hands on you in just a moment, that you have a great respect for. I can tell by the way you treat some of these men especially. Think of this. Every time you feel a little wary, not only in your own walk with God and your own insecurities, that some of those men you respected that much put their hands on you and prayed that some of the power that God put on their lives will be put on your life. It's the same thing that Elisha asked of Elijah when he said, when you go, I want a double portion of your spirit on me. That's what each of these men today, and look at all these people sitting up here, family even that have come to be with you today, and others that have traveled to be here to say, I want to be a part of Jeff making you a different person when you stand up from kneeling than when you go down. Whether you feel it or whether you don't, and sometimes you do even, know in faith that is exactly what is happening. Before we come to that point, I want to ask if any of these men that are sitting up here today, whether you're here from our church or whether you've traveled, if there are any words that you'd like to speak to Jeff before we do this today. I think it would be very appropriate if anybody would like to say anything at this time. Well, then we'll give you your chances. Go ahead.